Going into Toy Story 5, I think a lot of us had the same reaction, which was, again? Why does this need to exist? After Toy Story 3 felt like the perfect ending, and Toy Story 4 somehow managed to justify its own existence, it felt like Pixar was just pushing their luck with this fifth one. I honestly didn't think they could stick the landing again, but they kinda did. I wouldn't say this is the best movie in the franchise by a long shot. That's always, probably forever going to be Toy Story 2. But I had a really good time with it, and I think it does enough new things to justify the comeback. One of the biggest reasons this movie works is because it shifts the spotlight over to Jessie. We spent so much time following Woody and Buzz over the years, and giving Jessie a bit of a backseat, whereas in this one, they kind of give Jessie the central role, which was a really refreshing change of pace. The story is built around her and her backstory, and unlike some legacy sequels that try to split the focus between everyone, the movie commits to her journey specifically. Now that also means the supporting cast takes a bit of a backseat, and normally I would see that as a negative, but honestly I didn't really mind it here because the central story is so specifically about Jessie. Woody and Buzz are definitely involved too, but they're not so involved that they completely overshadow the main plot. They feel important enough without stealing the movie entirely. And speaking of Jessie, I think this movie uses her history incredibly well. We all know her history with Emily from Toy Story 2, and that history has always been one of the franchise's most emotional moments, and instead of just referencing it for nostalgia, Toy Story 5 actually used that trauma to push her character forward. It heavily influences how she views change and how she reacts to technology and abandonment, and ultimately helps shape her entire arc. I also really like how they gave that storyline some closure by revealing that Emily eventually did have a daughter and named her after Jessie, showing that she never forgot about her best friend. It's a small detail, but it makes that emotional thread feel complete in a way that I wasn't really expecting. That ties into what is probably the biggest theme of the movie, or at least one of the biggest elements, which is the concept of technology becoming the normal for children. When I first heard that tech was going to play a major role in this, I was a little worried that this was just going to turn into one of those movies where the message is just, phones bad, playtime with regular toys good. I was afraid it was going to fall into that category. Thankfully, that's not really what they did. The movie doesn't villainize technology, and it instead presents it as something that has, it's changed how kids play, and the conflict comes from figuring out how traditional toys and technology can coexist together. And that's where Lily Pad comes in. I actually thought she was surprisingly strong as an antagonist because she never comes across as evil. Everything she does it because she genuinely believes she's helping Bonnie. She's not trying to hurt anyone or take over for selfish reasons. She simply just has a different idea of what makes a child happy. That makes her a lot more layered than just a traditional, typical animated villain, and it fits the movie's central overall message really well that, it's not good versus evil, it's about different ways to bring joy to a child. Jessie's eventual change of heart towards technology also feels pretty natural. It's not something that happens overnight, and it never feels like the movie suddenly flips a switch just to wrap up the movie. You can actually see her perspective evolve and change throughout the story, which made that payoff feel actually earned. The movie also introduces a new character in Blaze, who is a girl about the age of Bonnie who still plays with traditional toys, even though she does have some technology but doesn't let it consume her playtime. And I thought Blaze was actually a really strong addition to the franchise. She's written like an actual kid instead of just existing to move the plot forward, and she represents children who still enjoy playing with toys the traditional way. At the same time, she reinforces the movie's balance between imagination and technology instead of making either side seem completely wrong or completely right. Bonnie also feels much more important this time around. One of my main issues with Toy Story 4 was that Bonnie seemed to feel like she was just there because she had to be, but here she actually feels like the emotional center core for the whole movie again, and I think the story uses her really well. The film even touches on subjects like pressures of young kids and what they face today, and like cyberbullying and all that, and it doesn't spend the whole movie focusing on those ideas, but they are woven into the story pretty naturally enough to where they add some emotional weight without feeling preachy. Visually, I also loved what they did with the playtime scenes. In the first 4 movies, any playtime would just look like the rest of the movie. It would be animated completely the same, and you couldn't really tell unless it was in a different setting. However, in this one, when the kids are actually playing, the movie shifts into a much more imaginative visual style that feels like you're seeing it through the lens of a child's imagination instead of just normal animation style that we've seen throughout the franchise. One of those little creative choices that helps the movie stand apart from the others, and of course the voice acting is fantastic. I mean, it always has been. It's always nice hearing Tom Hanks, Tim Allen, and Joan Cusack. Is it Cusack or Cusack? I don't know. Return to these characters after all these years, and they still fit these roles perfectly. Now, I definitely don't think the movie is flawless. It's definitely not perfect. Probably my biggest issue is Woody and Buzz, actually. I understand they're lifelong friends, and friends argue sometimes, and they bicker in a way that only old friends can, but I don't know. Their constant back and forth started to feel a little repetitive after a while, and it felt like they kept getting in each other's way just so the movie could manufacture some sort of conflict. It became a little predictable. Speaking of which, Buzz also arguably gets the weakest storyline in the movie. Don't get me wrong, he has a decent role, he has enough screen time and enough voice lines, and he actually does do quite a bit in terms of, trying to get back Jessie. But his entire arc centrally revolves around trying to ask Jessie a question, and it just reminded me a lot of Kristoff from Frozen 2, where his whole character is built around trying to propose, which is exactly what Buzz is trying to do with Jessie. Considering how many great storylines Buzz has had throughout the series, not including Lightyear, we are not counting that, it felt a little disappointing that this was pretty much all he had for this movie. Also, I love how I keep seeing everybody posting the screenshot of Jessie and Buzz kissing and them being like, oh man, we're okay with it, we just don't want it forced down our kids' throats. For all the people who are like, oh, we don't want to see gay people kissing on screen, have it shoved down our throats. If you can dish it, you can take it. Also, the new toys are fine, I guess. I mean, none of them are bad, but outside of Lily Pad, I don't think they're especially memorable. I know that there was one bathroom toy, there was a little alligator who I forgot what he did, and there was a camera or something. I can't really remember. Speaking of which, the bathroom toy whose name I don't know, I'm not going to Google because I don't want to take time out of my day to Google Toy Story bathroom toy because I don't want to be put on the list. But I do know he was voiced by Conan O'Brien, which, it was my least favorite. Now Conan himself, he does a great job with the performance, don't get me wrong, but the character just never really clicked with me and ended up being a little bit annoying instead of funny. There's also the issue with Mr. Potato Head. Obviously, Don Rickles passed away, so replacing him is an impossible task. He was one of a kind as a voice actor and just an actor in general. But sometimes the new voice sounded surprisingly close, and other times it was noticeably different. Not a huge problem though, since the character doesn't have many lines, but it was a little distracting whenever he did. Overall though, I walked away pretty impressed. This movie easily could have felt like just another unnecessary sequel in the Pixar canon, but instead it managed to tell a story that feels refreshing and fresh, and while still staying true to what Toy Story has always been about, which is toys wanting to make their children happy. What I do appreciate is that it doesn't try to end with some massive, this is definitely the last Toy Story movie ever, you are never going to see these toys again moment, because Toy Story 3 and Toy Story 4 were amazing and their endings were justified and they were great. But, those endings worked for the films, but this one leaves the door open naturally, and honestly, I'm kind of okay with that. I cannot believe I'm saying this. Before the movie, the idea of a Toy Story 6 would have made me so nervous and confused, but after seeing this, not really. Pixar hasn't screwed up the Toy Story series, at least yet, so I doubt they're going to do it on a sixth one, so I'd be okay with a sixth movie. They got a little bit of my trust. They've ruined a franchise or two, but they have done pretty well with the Toy Story franchise since 1995, so, I guess I gotta give them props where props are due. As for where this stands in my overall Pixar ranking, I would put it at number 19, which is right between Finding Dory at number 20 and Hoppers at number 18. Which feels like a perfect spot for it. So I would say that it is better than Finding Dory, but it is not better than Hoppers, I don't believe. It's not quite among Pixar's very best, but it's comfortably above average, and a sequel I can genuinely see myself revisiting one day, especially if I go back to rewatch all 5 Toy Story movies and do a whole video on that. Or at least do 5 videos on each one, but that's for another day. For me, Toy Story 5 was a solid 7 out of 10. It's not perfect, but it's heartfelt, and surprisingly fresh for a sequel, and it proves this franchise still has stories that are worth telling. I can't believe that I wouldn't mind seeing a Toy Story 6, but I actually feel like I'd be okay with it. I think that they could continue to do good, and there's just a lot they can do with this franchise. Anyway, that's my review of Toy Story 5. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to check it out if you haven't already. If you haven't checked it out, then clearly you don't care about spoilers because you watched this. But yeah, I think this is a worthwhile revisit to the Toy Story franchise that, if you grew up with the movies like I did, you should definitely check it out. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys later with whatever my next video happens to be. So take it easy, and... there's a snake in my boot.